Welcome to Jane Jackson Careers, a podcast to inspire you to take your career to the next level. In this podcast, I chat with amazing professionals who are leaders in their field and find out what's made them a success. Many of them have successfully made changes in their careers. They may have changed industry, changed job function, made big city or country moves, or taken the huge leap into entrepreneurship. I also share practical and actionable career tips for those who want to explore what to do next in their career and aren't sure about what steps to take to get moving. Subscribe to this podcast for regular updates or visit me at janejacksoncoach.com.
Hey, this is John Lee Dumas introducing Jane Jackson Careers, a podcast that will inspire you to take control of your career and your life. Here's your host, Jane Jackson, career management coach and author of Navigating Career Crossroads. Be prepared to ignite.
Well, hello and welcome to my Careers podcast. Today we have one of Sydney's top recruiters on the show, so I'm really looking forward to our chat. Brad Eisenhuth is a director at AXR Recruitment and Search. He joined the industry on a journey to find his passion after a short but very exciting time as a professional rugby league player and holding a scholarship to study at University of New South Wales. Now, Brad has created a highly developed network in the Sydney finance, accounting and commercial space with particular exposure to listed companies in a range of industries. With over a decade in accounting and finance recruitment, Brad is determined to see change in the performance and delivery of the recruitment industry and is actively working on projects to make his vision for the industry a reality. As part of this, he has become the published author of CFgrOw, Staying in the Driver's Seat on the Path to CFO. And that's a really good book. I've read that as well, so I can highly recommend it. Now, this was highlighted as recommended reading by the Institute of Chartered Accountants and promoted in their magazine, Acuity. Brad has presented as a keynote speaker at various industry events, including ACCA's Think Ahead series, and has been noted in various media publications, including the Australian Financial Review, Shortlist, and others as a thought leader in the industry. Brad has led the introduction of AXR's CFO Incubator program launched in 2015, which is a groundbreaking program designed to harness the thoughts of industry leadership in supporting the development of talented accounting and finance professionals. So let's welcome Brad Eisenhuth to the show. Good morning, Brad.
Good morning, Jane. How are you?
I'm very well. I've been looking forward to talking to you because today's a very lovely sunny morning in Sydney after a fabulous weekend. And I'd like to learn all about you and your career path to where you are now becoming a published author. So to kick us off, can I ask you a little bit about your early days? When you're a little boy, you're an early young teenager, what career path did you dream of?
Well, Jane, being a young boy, I had an interesting dream of wanting to become a rugby league player. So while I worked very hard and studied as hard as I could at high school, I deep down really wanted to be on the TV, running around with my football boots on, and while I reached some heights in that space, I unfortunately didn't quite get there. But at the same time, I guess where I always focused on was if I was going to if I worked hard. My belief was things were going to work well for me, but I probably wasn't anyone to dream of any other sort of career outside of rugby league as a kid. It was a bit of it was almost like some people wanting to become a rock star. Rugby league for me was that was the angle I wanted to play.
Well, aren't rugby league players akin to rock stars anyway?
Oh, I don't know. Depends which ones you talk to, I guess, or who follows them. But it was fun while it lasted.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I think it probably would have been a really good grounding for you because when it comes to being a professional rugby player or a sports professional, the discipline required and the coaching that you would have received probably, really strengthened your character as well.
Oh, I think so. Absolutely. I guess when I went through the ranks, I was involved with the Western Suburbs Club and West Tigers, and I had the benefit at the stage of sort of 16, 17, 18 years old of playing and training with guys that were in their mid-20s and late and early 30s, who had long careers in the game, and and it pushed you really hard to to focus on performing at a higher level, and also stretching the way that your body was able to behave and be prepared for matches. So from a discipline point of view, it was excellent. And not only that, at the same time, I was studying, and it really taught me to balance my life and become efficient in the time I spend in whatever pursuit I had. So pursuing an engineering degree at the same time as playing, I found that challenging, but at the same time really rewarding. And I learned a lot from that time. And some things I'll probably didn't handle as well as I could have, but I learned a lot.
Oh, I mean, it sounds like every little boy's dream to be a rugby league player, but to actually, be on a professional team as well is fantastic. And plus, getting the scholarship to study at University of New South Wales proves that you must have had a lot of discipline. You were willing to put in a lot of hard work as well. Plus, obviously, a level of intelligence to get you there. But engineering, this is something that I didn't realize, because I know you as Brad, the recruitment and executive search consultant. I didn't know you as Brad, the engineer. So what prompted you to choose engineering at uni?
Look, I guess for someone who promotes planning in a career for a living, I really, honestly, if I look back now, in taking that scholarship, it was all driven by positioning myself for a career that I really didn't know a lot about, to be honest. And the scholarship at the time was one of the higher paying scholarships. It was an academic scholarship, and I guess when I was interviewed for it, took into account lots of other facets of life and my abilities that would potentially play well into becoming an engineer. But I guess for me, in studying and doing all of that at the time, and working with a company at the same time as well, I just realized it wasn't something that I was truly passionate about. I was, maybe part of it was to do with the people I worked around. Maybe part of it was to do with the content of what I was studying. So I decided to put the education piece on hold for a short period of time, and literally pursue rugby league at a much deeper level. And unfortunately, at the same time, I had well, not at the same time, but I had a few injuries that year, and things didn't really go to plan. So it really forced me to start looking a little bit more deeply about what I could have been good at, and what I enjoyed, and I started to follow what I found was my passion. And I guess it was a little bit by luck, but I started working with a group that spent time educating and training people who were unemployed, and helping them find ways to return to the market in a meaningful way and a sustained way. And I spent a few years doing that alongside training and playing and studying as well, and found that was something that I really enjoyed, and it leveraged me into later on into a career in recruitment, which was great.
Actually, it's quite interesting because I'm thinking of professional rugby who perhaps have had a long career, and at some stage, because of injuries or age or whatever it might be, then they need to make a change and get another job. So they have to reinvent their career out of the sporting world into perhaps the corporate world as well. And so for you, having that engineering background, that gave you something else. But that's interesting that it didn't really inspire you until you reinvented yourself yet again into the employment space and helping others.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's something that when I was a young boy, and like I talked about before, I wanted to be a rugby league player. A real career and a real job had never really crossed my mind. I figured that would look after itself if I worked hard and trained hard and studied hard and scored great results. So it was an interesting period of my time. But I guess, when I look at rugby league and that time at that stage of my life, you learn to network with people, you learn to leverage off other people in your team as far as the way you play, but also the types of communities and relationships you have in a more professional level. So my first job was actually through that network, and it taught me also that you do need to start to work with people around you and value the relationships you have, because from a career point of view, to me, that's opened most doors in my life. And so I really value that time of my life, and while challenging and while I had a lot going on and probably didn't know exactly where I was going, I never regret it.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a natural way with people and relationship development too, which must put you in a really good position for your current role. And so tell me a little bit about your recruitment career.
Thanks, Jane. So that's nice of you to say I have a lot going on with relationships, but no, I think it's important in my career. So look, in short, I joined a very large global recruitment group um, very early in my life, and just after that short stint in the training role. And it was very interesting in joining that business. I know that they weren't particularly positive about my selling and my ability to maybe spin sell. We did an assessment center, they call it, and I went through a process there, and I wasn't sure that they were completely convinced in my ability to sell and interact with clients in a selling basis. But I managed to get a job, and 5 years later, I'd been promoted, I think, 4 or 5 times, and had learnt a lot on the job, and had essentially built a number of relationships that have been still really valuable today. But I think what I learned in that global recruitment business is that it's very much a system. It's very much an environment where if you play that system, you can be very successful. And what I found was, while I would perform well from a revenue generation point of view and some other factors that allowed me to become successful in that environment, I wasn't sure that from a long-term point of view in recruitment that would really allow me to be as well regarded and as successful as I could potentially be. So I had I was a little disillusioned with recruitment, I suppose, through that experience. I didn't believe in the model of KPIs and calling people for the sake of getting those numbers up, and all the things that people typically get frustrated with in terms of the recruitment world itself. And so I was quite keen to explore what my options were and how I could leverage all of the skills I'd developed in those first 5 years. And an opportunity came to, I guess I was at a crossroads. I was considering even exiting the recruitment industry, but an opportunity came to work with the team at the time they were called Absolute Executive Recruitment, or now when we're known as AXR Recruitment and Search. But the guys in our business had founded it and set it up a few years earlier, and were growing quite well. And I guess it had some success moving through the global financial crisis as an organization who had some deeper relationships than purely a transaction. And I thought that was really powerful, particularly in a tough recruitment market, that this business was still managing to perform quite well and tended to have a lot of work on their plate with some great organizations. So I decided to come in and after managing in my previous role, come in at a more hands-on consulting basis and just reinvent myself as a more sophisticated and a more articulate recruiter that could add a lot more value. So in joining the business, I basically started in that capacity and have literally just continued to grow as an individual and as a leader, and I guess for a period of time have managed the group team, and have also initiated a number of new value adding kind of programs that we work with. Or where we work with our community in a very different way to what traditional recruitment groups do. So that's been a really interesting phase. And I guess to give the audience an insight on what AXR Recruitment and Search do, what we focus on, we sit, I guess, just below the traditional executive search groups. So we work with CFOs and other executives to hire the top two tiers of senior finance functions, and within that leads us to working on some pretty interesting opportunities across the primarily the East Coast market of Australia. So that's positioned my career really well for the stage that we're at now. I feel like our business is certainly outperforming, particularly for the headcount we have, and I guess the reputation we have in our market, and enjoying myself at the moment.
Yeah, well, it sounds really interesting the way that you went from one typical business model of recruitment into the way that you do it now. And so, how would you say that the business model is different at AXR from your typical transactional recruitment agencies?
Yeah, look, it's very different, I must say. We really rely on hiring individuals that are motivated to add value to our client base, and particularly interested in what we call a career partner model. So we work with individuals at various stages of their career, and those that we invest in, we make sure that they're making very, very good career decisions, and I guess try to play as much of an unbiased, almost coaching role in the way that they develop their career. Now, that's very, very difficult in our role to be completely unbiased, but at the same time, there are times where we might be working on a particular assignment, and we understand the decision-making process of a candidate, and realize that a different direction is better for them than the process that we're looking at. We'll provide that direction. Now, that's it takes a lot of discipline and a great deal of self-awareness to have to make those calls and to provide that recommendation to people. But the people that we have working with us have a long-term view of being in our industry for the long haul. And I suppose when you have that vision, and when you have that perspective that you will be around for a long time, and that you're prepared to make sure that people make a great call in their career, you'll find that from an attraction of work point of view, it happens much more organically and much more easily over time. So in the early days when people join us, we really encourage them to invest a lot into people, and really play a much more honest card and straight bat than a traditional recruitment agency might. And the rewards for most people that join our business over a couple of years tend to be very, very good. And I've seen that in my own career, where I'd moved out of a very transactional, KPI-driven environment to this environment, and from a from a relationship point of view and from a trust point of view, it's at a whole new level, and I've certainly say that it's really molded the way that I think about working with people in their careers holistically.
So it sounds like with the way that you work, you really focus a lot on relationship development. So when you're working with one particular candidate, it's not just to put them into a role. It's really to put them into a role and then follow their career as it progresses, so that you could perhaps even put them into the next level up. Is that the way that you work?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So, it does have its limitations in that you cannot invest heavily into every individual, and therefore you need to back the individuals that you work with and believe in their career and believe that you can add value to them, and that takes again a certain level of awareness and discipline, but it's really enjoyable. There's a lot of people that I've enjoyed working with over the years that have developed some fantastic careers, and have achieved some of the goals that they've set for themselves, and setting new goals all of the time. So it's a really good way. And I guess the way I consider it is that I try to develop a bit of a stable of thoroughbreds that are good to work with, and I enjoy working with, and I resonate with. And for each of the consultants in the group, we encourage the same concept. Mm-hmm. The downside to that, and I guess where we're moving to at the moment, is how you can scale the knowledge that we have across more people, in that, investing in at a one-on-one level all the time can be difficult, and we feel that the wider market can gain some advantage from the knowledge that we have, whether it's in the short term and not recruiting with us directly, but purely through absorbing some of the knowledge we do have, and maybe down the track that they will decide to hire or work with us in some capacity. So it's different, and yeah, absolutely relationship focused. But again, unfortunately, we can't invest into everyone.
Mm. You know what comes through really strongly listening to you talk is how passionate you are about what you do, and I love that. I love it to hear someone talk about their job as if it's not really a job; it's something you're doing it because it's almost your calling, and your passion really comes through very very strongly. When I'm coaching my career transition clients, so many of them do complain how difficult it is to work with some recruitment agents. Can you tell me? So many people ask me, why do recruiters not respond to phone calls? Why don't we hear back? Do you have an answer?
Oh, look, it's probably a few things I'd say. So first of all, there's I believe that if you really simplify, there are two types of recruiters. There are the transactional, KPI-led recruiter, and then there are the relationship-led recruiters. And even in both cases, they won't always return your call. So there is no foolproof answer. I think, if you understand the psychology of the recruiter in general, then it is much easier to therefore to get in front of them and make an impact and have a deeper relationship and get the results that you're looking for. So I guess in terms of the general return of call, I think the initial interaction with a recruiter should probably happen across a few different mediums. It needs to be with a solid value proposition. So if anyone calls me with a recommendation or associated with someone in my network and wants to get in touch, I very, very comfortably invest time into those people, particularly if they're associated with someone that I trust and someone that I believe understands what a good quality operator is. I think the second component is when talking about value proposition is to make it really clear about what you're trying to achieve and what the value proposition you have with respect to the reason you're calling. So if it's simply to make an introduction and be associated with that recruitment agent, then you need to make it clear and what value you think you can offer, and equally where you're looking for their value. If it's something specific to a role, be very clear around, the sort of caliber and type of background that they are looking for, and realize that the likelihood is that there's more than one of you out there, and that there's a lot of activity going on right now with people very keen to make job moves and feeling a little bit stale in the jobs that they're in. And so there's a lot of emotion, a lot of frustration, a lot of angst that comes into that time of finding a new job. And my general piece of advice is to avoid this altogether by playing much more of a long-term card when it comes to your career management. So rather than relying on the time when you're looking for a job to create a relationship or to tie in with a recruitment agent, it's way better to invest as people interact with you. So for example, there are probably a lot of recruiters that are interested in meeting with you. It's best to invest time understanding their network, understanding people that they interact with, and even telling your own story in a compelling way when you get the chance to meet with them. It would be very beneficial, even with those particular consultants that you enjoy working with, to recruit with them when you have the opportunity to do so. Now, that's not always the easiest thing to do in certain environments, and there's a big phase of internalization of the recruitment function and that we're seeing at the moment, and all the fancy things happening with LinkedIn. You may not always be able to utilize the recruitment services of a third-party consultant, but investing for the long term will have a much better outcome, particularly if you know that there's someone that's a leader in your space, particularly if you know that they're able to even provide you with mentoring and some direction in your own career. You'll find that their willingness and ability to get back to you will improve dramatically. So I think the long-term card's much better, but in the short term, persistence, playing to the value proposition, and being clear about what you can bring to the table and why you're interacting with that individual is probably the best thing to look at.
Yeah, that's valuable advice for every candidate who wants to work with a recruiter. So thank you for that, Brad. I guess in the long run, it is to do with the relationship development, and recruiters will want to work with the candidates who they know, they like, and they trust in the end. So if you're totally professional in the way that you approach a recruitment consultant, that's the best way to do it, because they're there to help you after all. Now, tell me, you focus on accounting and finance roles for accounting and finance professionals, and you have this the AXR has introduced. I think you've led the introduction of it, the CFO Incubator Program.
So the CFO Incubator Program is something we've very recently introduced, and it's when I looked at our marketplace, I noticed a few problems for the emerging CFO talent that we work with. And I guess at the end of the day, most people found it very challenging to understand exactly what paths could be taken to achieve the CFO chair, and obviously the role itself and what's happening at that level. Generally there's an awareness because you do work with a particular CFO through your career or a group of CFOs over time. However, the awareness of all the different directions that can be taken and the different types of CFOs out there is not really clear with most of the emerging talent and most of the accounting and finance community. So what we decided to do is rather than creating a one-on-one mentoring program, as some people have or some other organizations have started to explore, we decided to make a series for 20 high-achieving and hand-picked executives in the accounting and finance space to be able to meet with and do a Q&A session with 5 CFOs over a period of 5 breakfasts. And in doing so, the types of questions and what we work through with the CFOs are around both their career and their journey and how they've achieved what they're trying to achieve, and also some of the pieces that CFO believes has been able to create a difference or differentiate them from others in the marketplace. So sometimes it's around managing upwards, leading through change, some of the technical components that come with being a CFO, a number of different pieces that allow someone to be successful in their role. And so the CFOs that we've selected are all from very well-regarded organizations and all have very different journeys. And the 20 people that work through this program at any one time are able to work through the program as a group. So the other benefit that we identified with the CFO Incubator is that the group starts to share ideas and work with each other and potentially open career doors in some cases, but genuinely help each other with the decisions and challenges that they have in their career. So by creating that community, some people may reach out to the community and say, hey, I'm looking to roll out a particular system at the organization I'm with at the moment. Interested to know if anyone else has done, and they'll start to arrange coffees and catch up with each other and do things like that. So what it does is it tightens the community. It adds a lot of value back to the community. We impart our knowledge around career management and guidance and direction. We introduce people to each other in our own network, and that can certainly add a bit more value through their own lives. And ultimately, I think what we've seen through this process is that people are quite excited about the opportunity to be part of the CFO Incubator. We launched an invite for the program, and we had it oversubscribed in 48 hours. So
wow.
it was good. And so we're looking at working through this first program, and that will finish in December. And who knows where we'll take it from there.
Oh, that sounds like a fantastic initiative. And you're a very busy man, Brad, because you also published the book CFgrOw, Staying in the Driver's Seat on the Path to CFO, which actually ties in really nicely. So what prompted you to write this book?
Oh, the book was interesting. There's probably 2 phases or 2 parts about writing the book. One was that I genuinely believe that career management in the accounting finance space is very much led with bias. There's a lot of feedback out there. There's a lot of noise. There are managers influencing you to stay at a company because it's right for them. There's recruiters telling you how great a job is. There's a potential new employer, spinning an opportunity that might look great on paper. Lots of things happen in a career, and particularly if you're very ambitious, making the wrong move at a period of time can really cost you time in your development. It can cost you a lot of frustration and emotional angst. It can cost you the opportunity to even reach the goals that you're trying to achieve in the first place. So I decided to write the book to solve some of those problems, to take away the emotion, the noise, and really look at people who are very serious about their career, that want to take advantage of all of the time that they've invested in their education and I guess their skill to date, and how they can actually start to build a framework to managing almost safeguarding their career over the long term. So even to that concept I talked about before around dealing with recruiters and having a long-term approach, the book really leads people down that direction around investing into their future and creating opportunity rather than chasing opportunity. I guess the second component was that I am very conscious that our industry has its challenges around value creation, around its reputation, and around its validity, even moving forward in some people's minds. So I wanted to make sure that the book I wrote was unbiased, had value, could show people loopholes to cut through different challenges in the system, and really was all about giving back to the community as opposed to taking. And I hope that this is one example that a recruiter can use to add some value to their community. Obviously, I would encourage any person in my position to do the same if they're working with a sales and marketing group or other executives or supply chain or whatever community that you serve. I think there's a real opportunity to dig down very deeply and look at what makes success and what helps people become successful in that space. And I've certainly received some great feedback from it, and it's been very, very rewarding at the same time.
Yeah, congratulations. It's a great book. I've read it and I can highly recommend it. Now, for anyone who wants to get into recruitment, what would you say are the top 3 tips for success?
Well, it's an interesting one because I think it's very easy to be misled or to a degree be part of a system early on in your career. But I think there's also an element of learning and developing an understanding of the recruitment space in itself. So we need to take that into account. So I think if you're very early in your career in the same way I was, I think the best way to leverage a great career is to work harder than everyone else around you. And that's not simply about getting on the phone and calling as many people as possible, but it's really about understanding the space that you recruit in, really trying to learn from the people around you and the clients that you work with, and being honest about the level of experience you have. People will give you an opportunity. People will work with passionate individuals and people that work hard. So if you work harder than other people, you'll certainly get the return on your time. I think be prepared to make some mistakes early on as well. Providing clear career guidance, understanding the options that people have, understanding the different organizations, environments, cultures, and opportunities within them, understanding who influences a decision. A lot of these things take time to learn, and you need to put yourself out there in a smart way to learn those things. And when I say putting yourself out there, that's not about being arrogant and sharing your opinion with everyone. It's listening, it's learning, it's putting time into understanding and at first before you sell. And I think that's my second point. It's really about the approach you take. I certainly think it's important to have the confidence to get on the phone and talk to people, and bring an idea to the table and discuss their career and all of the skills that you'll be taught if you join the industry. But I think the super important skill that not a lot of people take on board is the ability to listen. And if you can understand what someone really wants, listen, challenge what they're thinking about, clarify in your own mind what that means, check that out with the other party, and whether that be the candidate that's interviewing for a role or whether that's the client that is recruiting. I think the ability to understand what is driving the decision is very, very powerful. Once you understand that, then you know how to solve the problem. Without understanding the problem, it's very, very difficult to identify the right candidate. So if I can provide any out of the 3 topics that or ideas that I've provided there, listening is probably the most important.
I 100% agree. It's all to do with the communication, isn't it? And without effective communication skills and really understanding what the other person is trying to say, will never be able to move forward. So thank you for those top tips. I think that'll be great for anyone who's aspiring to become a recruitment consultant. And now for people to find out more about you, Brad, they can go to bradeisenhuth.com.au, but I'm going to have to spell this out because no one will know. Okay.
It is a mouthful.
Yeah, so Brad is BradEisenhuth.com.au. You know what? You might want to get a URL that's just bradh.com.
I need to change my name. I'm sure there's another name. If anyone can recommend a name, please email me.
No, I like Eisenhuth. It's just hard to spell. But okay, so yeah, it is. So bradeisenhuth.com.au or axr.com.au. And if someone wanted to get in touch with you, Brad, what's the best way to reach you?
Oh, look, I think in the first instance, send me an email at brade@axr.com.au. My contact details are all over our website, and you'll see a little bit about our team there as well. So if you want to email, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn simply by searching my public profile there, which is Brad Eisenhuth, Eisenhuth. Or if you do want to simply Google me, you'll find you'll find plenty of little articles and things that will end up linking you with me. So there's a million ways to contact me, and I think particularly if you're in the East Coast Sydney market or Melbourne and Brisbane, and you're in the accounting and finance space, there's probably only a few connections separated from me anyway, hopefully.
Oh, that's fantastic. I have been very lucky to have you on the show today, Brad. You've provided lots and lots of insight, so I appreciate that very much. And I hope to have you on the show again to talk more about your book, CFgrOw, Staying in the Driver's Seat on the Path to CFO, which is amazing. And, well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Jane. And hopefully next time I have a few more stories and updates on what we're doing. So I will, I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks, Brad. Bye.
Thanks, Jane. Bye.
You've been listening to Jane Jackson Careers. Sign up to receive regular career advice at janejacksoncoach.com.